What is a child all about? What does he have? What does he experience? He experiences fear. That's his main emotion. What's he all afraid about? An adult, what's the difference between an adult and a child? An adult can validate himself. He can complete his sense of self and his self-worth and esteem on his own. He can do it. He can tell himself how good he is and feel good. He can validate himself and complete his self-worth. A child cannot do that. It's not because they're weak or because they're little. It's not capable of doing that. That's what that state is all about. That's why they're weak and vulnerable. Somehow they don't have the ability to complete their self-esteem. They need someone else to do it. So they are at the mercy of another person, an adult, usually the parent, because who else is the one in their life? The parent has to validate the child, or the child does not feel validated. He can't do it on its own. You can't say, well, get over it and just feel good anyway. The idea is it can't. That's what childhood is. That's what makes him so weak, the child. And this is a cursed state, because you're always at the mercy of somebody else, and you're always feeling that insecure, and it's really more of insecure of what? It's really a death sentence in a sense, because everything comes to, do I exist or do I not exist? When I validate myself, I tell myself I exist. I have worth, so I can be here. If I don't have worth, it means I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to exist. So I feel myself vanishing, even though I can look in the mirror and see myself. But it's funny, the way we feel about ourselves is not about reality. It's not about if you're really there, it's really about how do you feel about you being there. That's what it comes down to. So you might be there, but if you don't feel that you're there, you're as good as gone. You're evaporating. And a child is always struggling not to evaporate. And that's really what it goes through. Its whole life is trying to do something and to achieve and try to make sure that it stays in existence, almost like a drowning man, trying to always get that air, because it's trying to go from, God forbid, dying to catching life. And that's what it does. And that's why it's a very important role for parents to know how to treat their children. One wrong word or one yelling at, you already made them feel that they're not worth existing. That's why we always have to be very careful with our children, how to talk to them and how to treat them. Now, it doesn't stop at childhood. When a person becomes an adult, the trick is, what happened is, the child is still there. The child doesn't go away because a person grew up. See, why did God make a child? Because that was a test setup or preparation for the adult when he gets free will at 12 or 13, that now this child who's going to interfere with his life, so to speak, he'll now have to deal with that. Somehow that makes a tikkun, a rectification, or whatever it is, or his job setup, his test setup, many different calculations in that child. Which means this: every person has two people in them, the child and the adult. When you grow up and you become an adult, the child is still in there. And it's not you. This is what people have to understand, again, that I learned from Rabbi Kessin. When two people get married, the reason there's conflict in the household is because the two people aren't fighting, but there's four people who are fighting. There's the adult and the child in her, and the adult and the child of him. The two kitties are fighting it out, because each one with their insecurity is trying to make themselves secure by putting down the other one, or whatever the case is, and that's what's going on. Now, Rabbi Kessin has a whole lecture on this, which maybe we'll do one day, but I just want to give just a brief tidbit on it. So when a person grows up and he carries that child with him, what he's supposed to do, and this is the advice for everybody to know, is you have to spot the child. See, the child is hiding in us. We get angry, so we think one day I get angry, one day I'm happy. We think it's me, it's all me, because I'm me, who else am I? You have to find that hiding child in you. See, that's his secret. He hides. He's hiding because he's always afraid again. But when you spot him and say one day when you act irrational because you're feeling insecure and you're feeling that someone's yanking you out of existence, which is what you feel when somebody does something of an injustice to you, right away when you're in that mode, think to yourself, this is not me, this is somebody else. And you'll realize it's that childish, fearing part of you that's not the real you. And you'll learn to separate your child and your adult. Now, once you've spotted the child, that's already halfway of the solution. Now we'll learn to deal with him, and that's a whole nother study, which maybe we'll get into, God willing. So when this child, now there's a way to make the child lower and the adult higher by acting assertively, which I'll have to explain. And if you act irrational and bullyish and aggressive, you enhance the child because you're always making yourself think that you're afraid. When you are aggressive to somebody, you're attacking them. You're attacking because really you're afraid. So when you attack, you're not being strong, you're being weak because you have to attack because you're feeling so weak. So when you attack, the child gets stronger in you, and now you feel even more down or lack of self-worth. But when you act assertiveness, which is you just talk calm and you tell a person how you feel. You don't tell them what to do. You just say, you know, by you doing this, I feel whatever it is. And you talk about yourself. If you're not afraid to do that, that shows strength. And that lowers the child and helps the adult to raise up. Now it says again, when the child grew up, God made this feast for the righteous. That's what it means. When the child will grow up, meaning after mankind will have taken care of their childhood and eradicate it, it is time to celebrate.